Good morning. My name is Harlan Pickett. I'm with Eagle Care Health Solutions, and I'm bringing you the news you can use to kickstart your week. Get ready. After the countdown, we're going to roll this thing. And good morning. My name is Harlan Pickett. Great to be with you today. I am the host of the Broker's Edge, the Kickstart. Every Monday, we start your week out with the news of what's going on in our industry, trends from last week, news from last week, the breaking news from today as well. Okay, we're going to jump right into this thing right after I give you the information, a couple of housekeeping things. If you have any questions or comments, please put those in the chat. Be happy to address those during the show or even afterwards. The show does run continuously after this, so you can listen to it anytime. If you are listening afterwards, we do check in on those comments and answer anything that you might bring to the table. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we're going to jump in with a big story of something that has developed in the last week as CMS has released their final rule, I guess you can say. The drug payment plan, Medicare prescription drug payment plan, part 2 has been released, and this is the final rule. And man, this is a huge deal. So Health and Human Services released this on July 16th. Man, get this. This is crazy, guys. Starting in January of 2025, Medicare beneficiaries will be able to spread their prescription drug cost across the entire calendar year instead of paying them each time they go to the pharmacy. Stick with me on this because this is crazy stuff. In the new program, Medicare beneficiaries will be able to pay nothing for their covered Part D drugs at the pharmacy. Instead, Part D sponsors, so your insurance companies, okay, they will bill the beneficiaries monthly until the payment is made in full. And then, only then, will the sponsors pay the pharmacies. Wow, imagine it. This is crazy stuff, right? The program will actually launch January 2025, and it just happens to coincide with the exact same time that beneficiaries will no longer have any more out of pocket than $2,000 per year. So regardless of the cost of their medications and what it's looked like in the past, only $2,000 per year, and that can actually be spread out over the entire 12-month period. This is nuts, right? This is crazy stuff. Now, to get folks ready for this, Plan D sponsors will have to send out some information about to any of the enrollees, anyone who's enrolled right now and who spent at least $2,000 on medications from January 1 of this year through September 30th of this year. So obviously those notifications will come out after that. And man, think of how quick that's going to happen then, because that means that if they're doing that date through September 30th, people are going to get this information in October, most likely whenever AEP is already started. Because if they got to calculate it all the way through September 30th, they've got to have that information, and then they got to get the letters out. Wow, this is crazy stuff. These changes were actually part of the Inflation Reduction Act that was in 2022, but some of these things were not outlined quite like we are seeing right now. A couple of quick takeaways that I see from this, and that is that small pharmacies, they may not be able to continue to offer Medicare medications if they're not getting paid for long periods of time. Now, to offset that, think about the fact that we have only $2,000 that person's going to be responsible for. Okay, so if they're only responsible for $2,000 and it's an expensive medication, in 1 or 2 months, they're already going to have spent that, and then any other medications they get past that will then, of course, be paid by the plan sponsor or the insurance company from then on. So there's a lot of working parts in this. They're going to obviously have to get this information out to the participants, to the different enrollees, and man, think of all the agents out there that were not ready and were sideswiped with this as well. Looking for someone to plan, it's going to change dramatically the way that you look for someone to plan too, and make it even more imperative that a medication is on the formulary, because obviously this is not going to apply to any medication that is not on the formulary of any of these, any plan that's being sponsored. There's so much to unpack here, but wow, this is a huge deal as far as how the impact is going to be on beneficiaries on these plans, but also the steps that are going to have to be taken by insurance companies, and of course the impact it's going to have on pharmacies too. I'll probably put a little something together to put out there, a written, actually my response to what this would look like out there. I'll put that out on LinkedIn as well, because I can see some goods for some parties and some bads for some parties, and some perceived bads that actually may be good in the long run. So I'm really surprised that this has taken the turn that it has, but I think that it's very interesting that they have made this move in such a spectacular fashion. So we'll certainly keep you updated on this if anything else develops with it, but this is a huge deal, a big win for Medicare beneficiaries. The other parties, I guess it's yet to be seen what that's going to look like. Now, stepping back into the world of employer benefits, one of the continuing sagas of anything on that side is continuing rising prices. For those of you who are not familiar with what stop loss insurance is, it's catastrophic insurance for self-funded plans. In other words, it can be catastrophic for individual and then also aggregated for the entire group. And what we're seeing is continued rise in the premiums of stop loss because of especially specialty medications. We just kind of talked about medications there that are the stop loss on those guys is actually the government, which is funny enough. I say they only got to come out $2,000. Well, guess what? In that case, anything after that is paid for by the government. It's paid for by our tax dollars. We're the stop loss for it. But in a medical plan, in a self-funded medical plan, commercial plan, stop loss is an additional layer of protection that a company has to be sure that catastrophic claims don't bankrupt the company itself. So specialty medications and then just regular severe claims have pushed the cost of these stop loss policies up higher. Now, in most cases, they don't keep their deductibles the same, but when they do, so if you run the numbers and say self-funded plan, we're going to keep our deductible the same, then the average stop loss premium went up this year 11.5%. Now, technically, that's down. That's actually down from 13.4 in 2023. However, most people, as I mentioned, most companies do not keep their stop loss the same whenever they have that type of increase. And so when you actually look at the numbers when they move to a higher deductible plan, what it really looks like is the increase this year was 9.4% versus 8.4 last year. Now remember, on a self-funded plan, this is just a piece of the pie. This is just a piece of the cost. It's actually one of the reasons why a self-funded type option can make so much difference to a company, because even though you may get that 10%-ish increase there, whenever you look at that and it's only one little piece of your plan, then it's not an overall 10% or 12% or 13% increase. It is just a 10%-ish increase in a one little piece of it. And then that can correlate to a whole lot less overall cost increase for your plan. Be happy to talk to you more about that. If you're confused about that particular part of how a plan works, you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn or go out to our website, eaglecarehealth.com, and you can reach out to me through there as well. That's eaglecarehealth.com. All right, we talk a lot on this show about GLP-1s. And there's a little bit of talk both ways about, well, which one is the best? How do you figure out which of these plans is actually the best? Very interesting question, the best. Well, there's got to be some study out there, right? Yes, there is a study out there. So let's dive into which of these is actually the best. because these trials, they've got to be accurate, right? Well, this is very, very interesting. So trials for the weight loss drugs are actually not very uniform. And the studies can last anywhere from 13 to 72 weeks. What? It's crazy. And of course, the results are going to vary depending on where your body mass index was to begin with, because that data a lot of time is not even looked at, or it's not even there. To give you an example, a recent study. So researchers did a study comparing Mounjaro to Ozempic, two of the big name ones. Now, this is crazy stuff here, guys. They want to know both of these medications that, of course, are technically taken for diabetes type 2. They want to see which one led to greater weight loss. So they reviewed more than 18,000 patient records. Now, in the 3, 6, and 12-month look back to these studies, Mounjaro surpassed Ozempic in each of those times. Okay, they had a larger reduction in body weight. So that means Mounjaro is better, right? How did they come to this conclusion? Well, the only available information on these studies actually stems from highly flawed studies, from highly flawed data. So this included this actual research. The data they use does not specify why the patients are taking the medication. It also includes many patients that had off-label or compounded versions of the medications and not the actual brand name of the medication. And researchers also could note when a prescription was filled, but they didn't know what the doses were. So a higher dose, you would expect to maybe have greater results, but they had no idea what those were. So that made it even a little more murky. But here's the most telling part. This part is what really just throws a whole wrench in this monkey. By the end of the trial, less than half of the patients had continued on their regime. So poor adherence to the actual regime of the whole thing, that messed up the whole deal, because less than half the patients were there. So less than 50% of the 18,000 they looked at were even still taking the medication by the end of the time. Well, how are those numbers then in any way, shape, or form going to actually correlate to anything realistic? Crazy, crazy stuff. I think that there will most likely be some better, I hope, right? Some better studies out there. But it's very interesting that a number of these studies that come out and give us this great data are using flawed information because it's incomplete. Now, when I say it's flawed, the data they have shows what it shows. But it's certainly not, and it's scientific, right? And as long as they put all these things in there that say this is how we came to this conclusion, then I guess that's okay. But to come out and say this medication works better than this medication using a process that looks like this, that certainly in my mind raises a red flag and I don't believe gives you a final bit of information there that says this is the way I want to take this medication because it's been proven to be more effective. Crazy, crazy stuff. I think that obviously more data is needed, but once again, GLP-1s, there's still a lot of question about what the future of those will look like, especially as we look at more and more cost increases on health plans because of these medications. All right, so many of you know about and may have been even affected by the crazy global outage last Friday that went into Saturday for some organizations, probably through the weekend for some organizations, because a lot of the stuff had to be updated manually to get everything fixed properly. This also, I would guess, depending on what happened to an organization on Friday, depending on what their workload was and how many people were there and who could possibly help do anything, it may be going into this week. But if you haven't heard yet, there is a company called CrowdStrike. This is a company that ironically creates software designed to detect and prevent cyber attacks, which many people thought this was to begin with. A lot of folks showed up to work on Friday and had the blue screen of death on their Windows computer, but there was a flaw in their July 19th update that caused the computers to not be able to boot properly. And in fact, it just caused them to shut down once again and give the blue screen of death. The only way to fix it is to manually fix the actual computer to computer. So the actual update was for software that is set. It's a platform that's to prevent breaches through cloud technology on devices only running Windows operating system. And so that compatibility issue just crushed the thing down. Now, this actually had a huge impact both in hospitals and health systems across the United States, as well as airlines and health insurance companies. I was doing something just as simple as trying to print out a temporary card, an insurance card for one of my folks on a self-funded plan, and I couldn't do it. The website for the TPA was affected by this and was shut down, and they couldn't do anything. So they were out of business on that day, and we're still having issues with it today. So there are a lot of lingering issues from it. No one knew no one knew who CrowdStrike was until Friday, unless of course you used them and you were an IT person, but a lot of people know who they are now. That's not the way you want to get known, right? We prevent outages from cyber attacks, and the worst outage of all was by us because of an incompatible file. Yikes! That's a tough deal. All right, that's all we got for you today. I do want to see if there's any comments. There is not, but I see I got lots of love today on some of them. I'm betting some of you folks out there are Medicare, and so you're giving love because you're going to be paying less for your medication next year. I don't blame you for loving on that. That's going to be an interesting thing that comes across there. Hey, do appreciate everyone being with us today. We do this every week. If you would do me a favor today, I really do want to know that people are getting something out of these. I think it's very important to know that we're bringing value. And if we're not bringing value, then we don't want to do it. If you would please just reach out and give a comment on whatever platform that you're on so that we can take a look at that and let us know. Are we doing a good job? Do you want to see something different? We did this before and kind of took some of these comments that folks had, and we crafted what we did around some of that. But maybe you want something even different. Let me know what that looks like, because we do want this to be useful. We do want you to get to have a lot of great information from it. And if we're not sharing the information that you want to know, then I need to know that so I can do a better job. Do appreciate everyone being out here, being with us today, and we'll catch you next time on the Kickstart. We're out of here.